liability is the landlord.
No.
And
Okay.
I mean, the only way you do recoup it is through your rents.
Okay.
It would be, and the same applies to the PRTB, the tenancy registration. That's a landlord's liability.
Okay.
Letting fees, typically the letting agents would be charging 5 to 6% of the rent.
Yeah.
There doesn't tend to be.
Is that plus VAT or without VAT?
It would be plus VAT.
Yeah.
Unlike the UK, if there was a renewal, there doesn't tend to be a second charge unless there was, some significant negotiation involved. But in general, it's sort of taken that there isn't an extra charge, and most landlords would negotiate the renewal themselves.
Yeah.
If you had a landlord or a managing agent who was doing not only just doing the letting, but managing the property, rent collection, all that sort of thing on behalf of the landlord, fairly typically you'd probably end up with fees of somewhere between 7.5% and 10%, but probably more like 8.5%. Quite a lot of agencies would do a composite fee to include any new lettings and an annual management expense.
Okay.
Is there anything else that
perhaps
I suppose
estimates of what you think maintenance would be?
That will depend obviously hugely on the structure of the building, but and the type of finishes there have been, and obviously a big distinction between apartments and houses. The other slightly peripheral issue, but that I should flag to you, is that particularly with apartments and almost exclusively with apartments, it has emerged that there are very significant deficiencies in the fire compliance with many blocks that were built, I'd say, between the period of 2002 and 2008, where subcontractors particularly didn't use sufficiently thick dry lining and didn't finish in a fire-approved way the ceiling of the different units, particularly at roof level, and also, any opes and conduit penetrations, that these haven't been properly sealed, and quite often that the actual fire alarm systems may not be fully compliant. As a result, there are significant contingent liabilities in many of these buildings with, I suppose, many of the people who bought the properties on an individual basis in these apartment blocks already underwater in terms of negative equity, but not being in sufficient funds to pay for the remedial works which are necessary to bring these properties into compliance. There have been a few very high-profile sort of cases which have come before the court and come into the public domain. Some of these have been funded by public authorities, by the local authority, the planning authority, some by former developers, and some by insurers who are caught by it. But it is an ongoing problem, and it's one you'd want to be aware of almost with any apartment building. It tends to be kept on a fairly low-profile basis because obviously it's potentially very damaging to the sale of any of the units in these places if this emerges. But it's a key issue. Fairly typically, you'd be looking at liabilities of maybe £10,000 a unit, €10,000 a unit to put these deficiencies right. a lot of the times there's